Ekpo village was hidden deep within Nigeria's sprawling forests, its mud brick houses arranged in tight clusters as though protecting each other from the unknown. The village marketplace bustled with life during the day, with traders hawking vibrant fabrics, polished goods, and baskets brimming with produce. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, a heavy silence cloaked the village, broken only by the eerie calls of nocturnal creatures. The palace of Chief Iwara loomed at the heart of the village like a watchful giant. Its mud brick walls, intricately adorned with carvings of warriors and mythical creatures, spoke of Ekpo's long history of triumphs and its sacred traditions. To outsiders, it was a fortress of awe. To villagers, it was a reminder of their chief's absolute power. Chief Iwara was not merely a ruler, he was a legend. Stories of his exploits as a warrior had been sung for decades, his name synonymous with strength and bravery. Yet, beneath the layers of respect lay an unspoken fear, one that gripped even the most loyal of his subjects. The tales of visitors who entered the palace and never returned were whispered late at night, far from prying ears. The palace always had dried human meat. Strips of it, cured and smoked, hung in neat rows in the storerooms. No one dared to question its source, though many had their suspicions. The midday sun bore down mercilessly over the dense forest as a group of traders approached the gates of Ekpo. The trail was narrow and winding, flanked by towering trees that seemed to whisper secrets to one another. These traders were from Ugum, a neighboring village renowned for its bustling marketplaces and skilled craftsmen. Among them was Endifrikare, a tall, dark-skinned man with a cheerful disposition. His loud, infectious laughter often lightened the mood on their arduous journeys. But as the gates of Ekpo loomed ahead, even Endifrikare's humor couldn't mask the growing tension. Enifiok, the eldest and leader of the group, slowed his pace and turned to the others. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice low but firm. "When we enter Ekpo, no one speaks unless spoken to. Show respect, and we will leave unharmed." The traders nodded solemnly, their unease evident. All except Endifrikare, who chuckled softly. "You're all acting like we're walking into a lion's den," he said, adjusting the sack of goods on his back. Enifiok shot him a sharp glance. "This is no laughing matter, Endifrikare. Do you not know the stories about this place?" Endifrikare shrugged. "Stories are just that, stories. We're traders, not warriors. What threat could we possibly pose?" The group fell silent as they reached the gates, their nerves amplified by the sight of two imposing guards. Clad in animal skin tunics and armed with spears, the guards blocked the path, their expressions unyielding. "Who comes to Ekpo?" one guard demanded, his voice carrying an edge of authority. "We are traders from Ugum," Enifiok replied, bowing slightly. "We seek the chief's blessing to conduct our business here." The guards exchanged a glance before one stepped aside. "Follow us," he said curtly. The palace was both magnificent and intimidating. Its mud brick walls rose high, adorned with carvings of gods, warriors, and mythical beasts. Inside, the air was cool and carried a faint scent of incense. The grand hall stretched before them, its high ceilings supported by intricately carved wooden pillars. At the far end of the hall sat Chief Iwara, his throne elevated to emphasize his authority. His crimson robe shimmered faintly in the light, the golden symbols of Ekpo's gods embroidered into the fabric. His gray beard framed a face that was both regal and battle-hardened. The traders knelt before him, placing their offerings of spices, cloth, and beads at his feet. Chief Iwara's gaze swept over them, pausing briefly on Endifrikare. "You are welcome to Ekpo," he said, his deep voice resonating through the hall. "Your journey must have been long. Rest here tonight as our honored guests." The traders exchanged uneasy glances. Hospitality in Ekpo was as much a tradition as it was a test. "You honor us, my lord," Enifiok replied cautiously. Chief Iwara's lips curled into a faint smile. "The gods have blessed us with visitors. Tonight, we shall feast in their honor." By nightfall, the palace courtyard was alive with festivities. Torches lined the perimeter, their flickering flames casting shadows on the walls. The rhythmic pounding of drums filled the air as villagers danced and sang, their movements perfectly synchronized. A long table was set with roasted meats, yam porridge, and bowls of spiced soup. At the center was a towering platter of dry meat, its aroma enticing yet unsettling. Endifracaire sat among the traders, his earlier confidence replaced with nervous energy. He leaned toward Aniphiok and whispered, "Do you notice how everyone avoids looking at that chair?" Aniphiok stiffened, following Endifracaire's gaze to the intricately carved wooden chair at the head of the table. "That's the chair of honor," he said quietly. "Do not draw attention to yourself. Enjoy the food and keep silent." Before Endifracaire could ask more, Chief Iwara rose from his throne. The courtyard fell silent as all eyes turned to him. "Tonight, we honor our guests," he announced. "And in their honor, one among them will take the seat of distinction." His gaze settled on Endifracaire. "You," he said, gesturing with an open hand. "Come forward." Endifracaire hesitated, his heart racing. "Me, my lord." "Yes, you," Chief Iwara replied, his tone brooking no argument. Summoning his courage, Endifracaire approached the chair. Its polished surface gleamed ominously in the torchlight, and the carvings seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. "Sit," Chief Iwara commanded. Endifracaire lowered himself onto the chair, the air around him growing heavy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deafening clank, the chair collapsed, revealing a hidden trapdoor. Endifracaire's scream was cut short as he plunged into the darkness below. Beneath the palace, he landed with a splash into a drum of boiling water. The dimly lit chamber carried the faint hiss of steam and the acrid smell of herbs. Above, the trapdoor sealed shut, silencing his cries. The villagers in the courtyard gasped, some averting their eyes. Chief Iwara remained stoic, his expression impassive. "The gods have spoken," he said simply, and Endifracaire mysterious turn into dry meat. Months passed, and the rumors of Endifracaire's disappearance spread to neighboring villages. Some dismissed them as superstition, but others avoided Ekpo altogether. One day, another group of traders approached Ekpo. Among them was Eno, a cautious man whose curiosity was tempered by fear. "Do you believe the stories?" one trader asked as they neared the gates. Eno glanced at him, his expression grim. "I believe that if we're not careful, we may become part of them." Like the traders before them, they were led into the palace and welcomed by Chief Iwara. The feast that night was grand, but Eno couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. When Chief Iwara's gaze settled on him, Eno's unease deepened. "You shall take the seat of honor," the chief declared. Eno's heart raced as he approached the chair, every instinct screaming at him to turn back. As he sat, he felt the mechanism shift beneath him. But unlike Endifracaire, Eno had anticipated the trap. When the chair collapsed, he grabbed onto its edges, preventing himself from falling into the darkness below. The courtyard erupted in chaos as Eno pulled himself free. "This is no honor," he shouted. "This is murder." Chief Iwara's guards rushed forward, but Eno, driven by sheer adrenaline, fought his way through. The villagers watched in shock as Eno fled into the night, his cries echoing in their ears. Eno's miraculous escape spread fear throughout the neighboring villages. Though he survived, his mind remained haunted by the horrors he had uncovered. For the first time, the villagers of Ekpo began to question the traditions they had followed without hesitation. And in the silence that followed, the palace's secrets began to unravel. Far from Ekpo, the stories of the village's disappearances and its mysterious dry meat spread like wildfire. In the neighboring village of Afokang, Akpan, a skilled hunter known for his bravery and sharp intuition, listened intently as the elders recounted the latest whispers. "They say Ekpo has grown quieter," said Elder Ita, his tone cautious. "But quieter doesn't mean safer. The disappearances may have slowed, but the fear has not," added another elder. "The palace still thrives, and Chief Iwara's rule is as absolute as ever." Akpan, his curiosity piqued, leaned forward. Do you believe the stories? That the palace hides a secret pit? That visitors are never seen again? The elders exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. It was enough to confirm Ekpan's suspicions. That night, as the village settled into sleep, he packed his belongings and set off toward Ekpo, determined to uncover the truth. Ekpan arrived at Ekpo under the cover of darkness, his movements silent as he approached the gates. The imposing palace loomed ahead, its silhouette stark against the moonlit sky. The guards were alert but unsuspecting as Ekpan slipped into the village. He had planned his entrance carefully, avoiding the main paths and sticking to the shadows. He found his way to the home of Basi, a quiet villager with a reputation for knowing things others didn't. Ekpan knocked softly on the door, and after a moment, Basi's wary face appeared. "You shouldn't be here," Basi whispered, his eyes darting nervously. "I need to know the truth about the palace," Ekpan said. "And I think you can help me." Reluctantly, Basi let him in. "If anyone finds out, we're both dead," he warned. Inside the small hut, Basi spoke in hushed tones. "The palace hides many secrets," he began. "But the worst of them lies beneath the chair of honor." Ekpan leaned forward, his interest evident. "Go on." Basi hesitated before continuing. "There's a trapdoor beneath the chair. They say it leads to a pit, a place where visitors are sent to their deaths. And the meat," he trailed off, his face pale. "What about the meat?" Ekpan pressed. Basi swallowed hard. "The dry meat served at the palace feasts. It isn't from animals." Ekpan's stomach churned, but his resolve hardened. "I need to see it for myself," he said. The next day, Ekpan disguised himself as a trader and joined a group of visitors entering the palace. He kept his head low, blending in as they were led into the grand hall. Chief Iwara greeted them with his usual commanding presence. "Welcome to Ekpo," he said. "Tonight, you shall dine with us and witness the strength of our traditions." Ekpan's heart raced as he scanned the room. The infamous chair stood at the center of the courtyard, its polished wood gleaming in the sunlight. Eket, a young woman from the coastal village of Abasi, caught his eye. She, too, seemed uneasy, her gaze lingering on the chair longer than most. "First time in Ekpo?" Ekpan asked quietly as they were led to their quarters. "Yes," Eket replied, her voice low. "And I'm not sure I'll ever come back." That night, as the palace bustled with music and laughter, Ekpan slipped away. Using the directions Basi had given him, he found the hidden latch beneath the chair and carefully opened the trapdoor. The air below was warm and humid, carrying the faint hiss of boiling water. Ekpan descended the narrow staircase, his torch casting flickering light on the walls. At the bottom, he found the pit, a large drum of steaming liquid surrounded by shelves of jars and tools. The sight confirmed his worst fears. This was the source of the palace's dark reputation. Suddenly, footsteps echoed above. Ekpan extinguished his torch and pressed himself against the wall, his heart pounding as two guards descended into the chamber. "The chief says to prepare it for tomorrow," one guard said. Ekpan waited until they left before making his escape. The next morning, Ekpan approached Eket discreetly. "You need to leave," he said urgently. Eket frowned. "Why? What have you found?" "The chair, the feasts, it's all connected to something horrific," Ekpan replied. "The palace hides a pit where visitors are sent to die." Eket's expression darkened. "If this is true, then the chief must be stopped." "I'll need your help," Ekpan said. "But it won't be easy." Over the next few days, Ekpan and Eket worked quietly to gather information and recruit allies. They spoke to villagers who had lost loved ones and found those willing to stand against Chief Iwara. Their efforts drew attention, and the palace guards began to grow suspicious. Ekpan knew time was running out. "We need to act before they stop us," he told Eket. The day of the next feast arrived, and the palace was filled with villagers and visitors. Chief Iwara presided over the festivities, his commanding presence as intimidating as ever. At the height of the celebration, Ekpan stepped forward and pointed to the chair. "This chair is not an honor. It is a death sentence," he announced. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Ekpan revealed the hidden trapdoor, leading them down to the pit below. The crowd in the palace courtyard surged forward, their curiosity and dread mingling as Ekpan revealed the hidden trapdoor beneath the chair of honor. Chief Iwara remained seated on his throne, his expression unreadable, though his piercing gaze bore into Ekpan like a blade. "You speak of Dishna in my palace," Chief Iwara said, his voice a calm rumble that sent chills through the onlookers. Ekpan stepped aside, gesturing to the dark staircase revealed by the open trapdoor. "If I Dishna anything, it is the lies you've hidden here. Let the people see for themselves." Some villagers hesitated, but a few, emboldened by Ekpan's defiance, stepped forward. Eket was among them, holding a torch high as she descended the stairs into the pit. The air grew thick and heavy as they reached the chamber below. The sight of the large drum, the shelves lined with jars and sharp tools, and the unmistakable smell of boiling water confirmed their worst fears. This is where they go," whispered a young man, his voice trembling. "Those who never return." Eket's face hardened. "This is where they make the dry meat," she said, her voice loud enough to echo above. The revelation sent a wave of horror through the crowd above. Chief Iwara stood, his crimson robe billowing as he descended from his throne. His guards flanked him, their spears at the ready. "Enough of this madness," he roared. "You would believe the words of an outsider over your chief, over the man who has kept this village safe." The villagers recoiled, torn between fear of the chief and the truth they had just witnessed. "You've kept this village safe by feeding us lies and death," Eket shouted as she emerged from the trapdoor. "How many lives have been lost to your so-called traditions?" Chief Iwara's face darkened. "You dare question me? You dare challenge my rule?" "Yes," Ekpan said, stepping forward. "Your rule ends tonight." The courtyard erupted into chaos. Some villagers rallied behind Ekpan and Eket, their anger at the chief finally outweighing their fear. Others, loyal to Chief Iwara, took up arms, determined to defend the man they believed had protected them. The clanging of weapons filled the air as the two sides clashed. Ekpan fought with the skill of a seasoned hunter, his movements precise and calculated. Eket, though untrained, wielded her torch with determination, fending off attackers with surprising bravery. The fighting spilled into the surrounding village, families divided as loyalties were tested. Amid the chaos, a group of villagers descended into the pit, determined to destroy the tools of the chief's atrocities. Chief Iwara, flanked by his most loyal guards, retreated to the inner courtyard. Ekpan pursued him, his heart pounding with a mix of rage and purpose. "You've ruled with fear and blood for too long," Ekpan said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. Chief Iwara turned to face him, his ceremonial staff gleaming in the torchlight. "I ruled as I had to," he said, his voice calm but edged with menace. "Without me, Ekpo would have fallen to its enemies long ago." "No," Ekpan replied. "Ekpo fell the day you started feeding your people lies and death." The two men clashed, their battle a brutal and unrelenting test of strength and skill. Chief Iwara fought with the precision of a seasoned warrior, but Ekpan's agility and determination proved a match. As the battle raged, Eket rallied the villagers in the courtyard. "Look around you," she shouted. "This isn't about Chief Iwara or Ekpan. This is about Ekpo, our home, our people. We must choose what kind of village we want to be." Her words struck a chord, and slowly, more villagers began to lay down their weapons. The tide began to turn, and the loyalists found themselves outnumbered. Ekpan and Chief Iwara's fight reached its climax in the heart of the courtyard. With one final, powerful strike, Ekpan disarmed the chief, sending his staff clattering to the ground. Chief Iwara fell to his knees, his chest heaving as he stared up at Ekpan. "Do you think this changes anything?" he said, his voice a bitter rasp. "The people need a leader. Without one, they will tear themselves apart." "They don't need fear to lead them," Ekpan replied. "They need hope." The villagers, now united, surrounded Chief Iwara. Some demanded his punishment, while others urged restraint. In the end, it was Aket who spoke. "We must leave the past behind," she said. "Let him live, but banish him from Ekpo. He can no longer rule us." The decision was met with murmurs of agreement, and Chief Iwara was escorted out of the village, his reign of fear finally over. In the weeks that followed, the people of Ekpo worked together to dismantle the palace and its horrific secrets. They elected a new council to lead them, with Aket among its members. Akpan prepared to leave, his mission complete. "You've given us a chance to start over," Aket said as she bid him farewell. "I only revealed the truth," Akpan replied. "The rest was up to you." As Akpan disappeared into the forest, the villagers turned to face their future. The ruins of the palace were left untouched, a stark reminder of the past and a warning for generations to come. Though the road ahead was uncertain, the people of Ekpo were determined to rebuild their village on a foundation of trust and unity, leaving behind the shadows of their former chief.